Okay, well, jumping off of what you just said, we have elected the most unfavorable candidates in history. What could have been done differently so that we didn't get to this point?
Whew, okay. I think it has to go back a couple of years back to when President Obama was first elected and when he was first sworn in. I think we had a great opportunity, Democrats and Republicans, to work together and really have some respect for each other in the public sphere, at least. I think we have let so many loud voices from the back come to the front, voices of dissent, voices of disrespect, voices of hatred take the fray, that we have allowed this to get to the point where it is. I also think that as far as the Democratic side of things, I think that even though I'm a Hillary supporter, I think that there should have been some more candidates to challenge and Secretary Clinton and really hammer away at her during the race and hold her to her stances and positions in the past to really shape her into the nominee that we all could have, well, most of us on this side of things could have accepted. And I think at the end of the day, even if we were in the position where we could have ran on the national level, we should have. If we don't like the choices we have, then there's only one clear choice: yourself.
I want to push back against the question just a little bit. If you look at exit and polling data from Nevada and Florida and certain places in North Carolina, there are a lot of people who are really excited about these candidates. And the demographic breakdown is different on each side of the aisle, but Latino voters in particular in Nevada and Florida, first-time non-college educated voters in other places in the country. So I do think we want to be careful about categorizing the polis as all disenfranchised and disillusioned with the candidates. Certainly there are a lot of people who are and who are unhappy with the choice, but there are a lot of people who are quite energized by this race. And so I think sometimes a more productive way of thinking about it might be, how do these people who feel equally passionate about their respective candidates or equally dissatisfied with the candidates that they end up with, work toward a solution. But I do think we want to be careful about categorizing everyone who's voting as dissatisfied.
It's easy to say we need better candidates and you can support them, this, that, the other. I think one thing is, recently I was out in Washington, D.C. on some business, and two congressmen, independently of each other, made the identical comments. So obviously they were talking about it, and this is only on the federal level. The satisfaction percentage with the Congress is extremely low. It keeps getting lower and lower and lower. You have all the discourse in the national elections now. They both echoed legitimate concern that at some point does the American public lose faith in our political system altogether? Where's the tipping point? How much longer can we start beating each other up? How much longer does this go on? And does the point ever come when the majority of the people, or even a large percentage of people, lose total faith in the federal government? If that happens, what happens at that point in time? If Donald Trump doesn't stand for anything else, he stands for, there's a lot of anger out there. And he said a whole lot of things that I'm not real proud of. But people have seized onto that. And I don't know that they've seized onto that so much because they're so much in agreement with him as they're just so dissatisfied with the status quo and what's going on out there. That'll be a wake-up call to everybody that the system is good. We have a great system and it does work. You've got to be involved. You have to, if you're involved in no more than voting, you've got to be out there and vote. But I'm concerned where we're going. I remember I'm old enough now, I remember some good candidates out there. I remember when Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, different parties, the story always was that they fought, like Doug talked about, they fought all day long, but at the end of the day they could have a drink and they could, they realized the compromise was good. We've gotten completely away from that. I think the media, there's a whole bunch of people to blame about that. You can blame the media, you can blame the 24-hour newscast, you can blame a lot of different things. You can blame the fact that if you have 1,000 people and one of them's mouthy in an audience, that's the one that's going to be on the newscast that night. So it does concern me. And my theory is we probably all know somebody we would like to see in the Oval Office other than one of the two that are gonna probably be in there or gonna be in there. But they have no interest in being involved. They wanna get in the middle of this. So somehow we have to change the rules of the game. I don't know how to do that.
This probably didn't work out either. I will say this, and I don't know so much about it at the local level, but at the state level, the media makes my job almost impossible. Literally, almost impossible, okay? The speed with which things happen, the inaccuracy with which things are reported, okay? The box that it puts the other party in immediately.
Could you
Okay.
speak louder, please? I think they're having.
I'm about to end them.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, it works.
For a minute, it didn't work for me, so they're cutting me off.
Probably a good idea. I have been in meetings with my Democrat colleagues where we have hammered out agreements on difficult issues, only to be, one of us could be wind up being ambushed by a media person in the hallway, unexpected. I mean, it's one thing to be prepared, when you know they're coming at you with something. It's kind of a different animal to just catch it off the cuff on the fly. But I've seen this happen more times than I can shake a stick at, that you've walked out of the room, you've hammered out a compromise, you're good to go. Okay, somebody from the media asks one of you a question, you answer the question, it's on the 6 o'clock news. So now the vocal constituent base of either party goes ballistic. Okay? And the compromise unravels. It just stops. Okay? Because then here's sort of the ugly truth. Okay? Then nobody wants to say anything. Then nobody wants to talk together anymore because there are certain factions in either party, makes no difference which one, who will seize upon what you have said and use that against you in the next election in a backwards and perverse way. Okay, that's not even accurate to what happened. Okay, so it just stifles, just shuts everything down. And I can only imagine, I've thought of this a million times, how much worse that must be in Washington DC than it is here. It just has to be 1,000 times worse. Because everybody wants to draw the bright line. Everybody wants to have their moment on the TV and with the microphone in their hand. And people don't always behave in their best way, in the best possible way when they've got a microphone in their hand or TVs and their cameras in their face. Sometimes they say things they regret, but they won't take it back. Because it might, here's the ugly truth, it might cost me one of two things. It might cost me a donor, it might cost me an election.
Does anyone else have any comments on this question?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, okay. I asked, how did we get to this point where we elected the most unfavorable candidates?
Okay, well, I think for at least the Democratic side of things, in terms of Hillary's unfavorability, I think Bernie staying in the race for a long time had a lot of polarization in terms of how we view her. I think a lot of Bernie supporters ended up getting upset when it was finally called for her. And then also, I think it's important to note when Hillary Clinton is actually running for an office, her polls about her favorability are very low, but then when she actually gets into that office, they end up going up. So that's just something to consider, I guess.
So I think part of what plays into negative views of candidates is that we're all very passionate about issues and very particular issues. I mean, coming from being a member of the LGBT community, those things really matter to me. Issues that surround that world matter to me a lot. So following up on where a candidate stands on a particular issue I care a lot about matters. So if there's a candidate that's particularly against that, it's hard for me to support that. And I think when we see that divide on those really polarizing issues is where we see negative feedback on particular candidates, because we want people who align with our views and what we think is right. So when they don't in every aspect, it's hard for us to support them.
Yeah, let me
I was just reading an article this morning about the working class in America, and it just reminded me of kind of how we got here, and what I think plays a part of it is that I remember going back to the '08 campaign and how when the economy was tanking and going down, a lot of posters and analysts on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News kept on saying that the voters are going to vote by how they feel with their pocket. And over time, you kind of see that with a lot of the working class. They don't have jobs anymore like it used to be. And I think there's this deep anger with the American voter that just wants to at least have some faith that they're going to be able to make a living and support their family and not have to worry about student loans, whether or not the factory is going to be open, or if they're going to be able to make a living or not, or if they're going to have to go back and live with their parents. Our society has changed so much that now is being reflected in this election. And I think that has a lot to do of why we've gotten to this point where we are so angry at our own nominees for each party.